Alright, so back to this. Yet another black screen video, right? This time not on Blue Skies. I already made the two Blue Skies ones, the Natsuki route as well as the what would you call it? The thought experiment for a potential continuation, how that would look like. Those two are the end of the Blue Skies Black Screen videos as well as the series in general. Still need to get all of those uploaded, which I will tonight by the time this is up, certainly. But again, that just marks the end of that. And I started the first recording of a Yik, or I guess it's Y2K, right? But I'm still gonna call it Yik. Just again, we'll see how that ends up turning out, right? That's but again, that's kind of irrelevant to this video. This is for the first time in actually a decent bit. Well, not that long. The last black screen video for the anime I believe I made was on Takagi-san season 3, which was however, it honestly was, I think it was like a few weeks ago, like maybe close to like a month ago. But yeah, again, this is on just the next show that I had watched. And I guess funny enough, the first show that I had watched since, because again, if you count the seasons as the same show, right? Like again, the first show since like Takagi-san, then Nagatoro, right? Which, was which I started quite a bit ago. Like those I started watching in January. So again, it's just interesting to think about there. And yeah, the big thing. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so tired, but yeah, I'm gonna kind of get back into watching the shows. So we'll see there, right? And this is just the first one I watched since then, which again, as you can tell by the title, right, is My Dress Up Darling, right? And the big thing there is, yeah, it only has the one season out right now. I have no idea if there's going to be a second. And I believe it was finished about a year ago, like roughly a year ago. I believe it finished at the same time, right, as like Rent a Girlfriend, which is probably why I never got into it. Just entirely self-transparent, because like that's just something where like just the title of that was like, okay, I feel like what would you call it? That's fairly like I almost don't even need to watch. Just giving off that. This one, I think I kind of ended up lumping it in with it, but again, at least from what I heard and why I ended up watching is that it's apparently like completely different. Which funny thing being, yeah, that hasn't picked up a second season yet. But again, it's actually, and I started seeing clips of it on what would you call it, on YouTube. So again, I decided to watch it, right? And so I knew, funny enough, I knew a decent amount, and just full disclaimer, right? I will say I knew a decent amount of what happened before I watched it, but at the time I didn't necessarily know that it was about like all the cosplay and stuff like that, or it was about like the different outfits. So a lot of what I'd seen I didn't recognize was the same character. Obviously Gojo looks the same, but like Marine, right? She looks completely different depending on what she's wearing. So it just never clicked to me. But again, it was something to where, again, just full disclaimer, I did know a bit about it before I went in. So there's that, right? Just getting that out of the way. I guess another disclaimer though is that, so, and I guess this is kind of my motivation to make the video. So I watched it in dub, right? And I will say though, it's like, yeah, I watched it in dub. I'm not sure I've seen any sub clips of it. I probably have. But yeah, I watched the whole thing in dub, so I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It felt like the voices fit fairly well, and then it's flowed, and then it was fairly smooth there. There was only like one instance I remember, and I believe it was, I don't even remember what episode. It was after she like greeted him and she didn't have like any clothes on, where again she got embarrassed. But I believe what the dub was talking about was like something else at the time, like her context when it was really her chest, right? And this was after she kind of recognize her, realize her feelings for him. That was really the only time where I think I caught something to where it was potentially probably like mistranslation there, um, for like the dubbing itself. But other than that, it was pretty good, right? Like I enjoyed it. So and like I say, if there's dub, I'll usually watch it. Again, just not, and like if I, funny enough, because I recently received a comment on the video, but the sub elitist video I made however many months ago, like I talk about how like if there's a dub, I'll watch it just for sake of convenience, and generally because like like that's what I enjoy more, right? It's my personal preference. So, again, so like I did for this one, yeah, I enjoy it that way. But apparently, like, there's like, I don't know, like I was just like looking at comments, and apparently like people like say like sucks. But I feel like that's again going to the whole sub elitist kind of mentality. It's sort of the what would you call it? It's a lack of self awareness, and it's almost like contradiction, because it's like they'll say like there are good ones, but that this one sucks ass, but then they'll say that about every single dub. So it's like whatever, just yeah, I don't pay really any attention or mind to it. But again, I just wanted to get this stuff out of the way, wasting 5 minutes, because now I want to get into the show itself and my thoughts and opinions on it, right? Because I really enjoyed it, really thought it was great, and again, it's I'd say arguably one of my like favorite shows of the genre. So with that, yeah, we can get into it there. So the show itself, just in case you didn't know, it's about typical stereotypical like anime MC dude, right, who's kind of like antisocial and doesn't have a life. And then just, coincidentally, he ends up meeting one of the more like popular girls in school, right? First, the first interaction was she literally fucking fell on his desk, which I have no idea how that happened. Then the second interaction was when they had cleaning duty, and then she kind of like told him like he was being taken advantage of and used by his classmates and peers, right? And then the third interaction was when it was in the sew shop, and that's when that third interaction was when they actually kind of got to know each other, where again she like saw again, she saw him talking to this freaking like Hina doll, which is a little sus there, but she was more concerned with the fact that he could sew, because again she was trying to sew some like cosplay together at the time. And that's when she showed him the first one. He realized it sucked ass, but then again he kind of showed his expertise and then revealed that he could actually help her out with that. And that was when they kind of got together in a sense, and then it was that third interaction would set up their like continuous means, and then set up their, I guess, partnership when it came to cosplay, and that stuff like that. And then that just leads to the rest of the story. It leads to the first cosplay, leads to all like the interactions they have together, all the time they spend together, them end up meeting the other cosplayers, right? And then again, that's basically that interaction is what sparks the rest of the story. I'm not going to talk about and get through the rest of the story, because that would take the entire video. But the point is, and what I'll say is that and one of the big things, and I guess reasons why people, and I guess me myself, and what I notice and what I enjoy and like so much about the show, is that it feels natural, right? Like, it's not super, well, first, it's not super over the top what they do, like how you'll see it with like some other fucking animes where just everything's so over the top, and it's like, dude, like, chill the fuck out, right? Like, especially for quote unquote slice of life, which, funny enough, again, I can make I'll probably make a video on how slice of life isn't actually fucking real life. People it's very much not like that, but it's something where like what's supposed to be like that, like, again, it's just way too like over. But with this, it really wasn't, right? There were only a few scenes I can think of that were kind of over the top. I'd say like the first scene was probably when she was originally in his bedroom. Like, there's no way you don't have like that amount of like self-awareness, right? On her part. So that was a bit over the top. And then also, the hotel scene sequence, right? Like, granted, it was a good scene, right? But again, it was pretty like over the top, right? Over, like his own lack of self-awareness in that situation, for being so like self-conscious about it all the time, is just like. But again, doesn't mean that they were batches. Those were like the two scenes specifically that I could like say and point out that were like, okay, these were kind of over the top. But as for the rest of the show, it really wasn't. And honestly, it almost, like I said, felt natural. It feels like genuine. It feels like they're what would you call it? Like, I want to say almost like human beings, like actual fucking people. Like people. That's how people like act like, right? They don't act like over the top like the rest of these fucking shows that just like max like just make everything super over the top. Like, this is how people and human beings genuinely and generally act. Again, bar those two scenes, I think those two scenes were pretty like over the top. But it's like, as for again the rest of them, it's something to where like it's such a breath of fresh air, refreshing, right? Because it's something where it's like you can look at other shows. Well, okay, I still am thinking my favorite, personal favorite, still probably like Takai-san, right? I think that, just like again, that's gonna be hard to like dethrone, especially because like if I were like super into like anime, right, and watch like every single, like I'd probably find that one, but like it's gonna be hard to topple that. But it's still something where it's like it's nearly as good, right? Like I'd put it like for that type of show, you know, it's like almost at that level, right? It's like I'd say it's just like slightly below. Like I like again, like that's a compliment. That's not saying it's bad, like because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good show to watch. But it is something to where it's like it's still not my favorite because that's my favorite, but it's like slightly below. Like I guess I can't really think of AR shows at the moment because it's like I guess Nagatoro. I will say I liked it more than Nagatoro. I'll say um, I liked it more than that. But again, not by much, right? And also the big thing being that's what this one. I'm not sure if there's even gonna be another season for it, right? But that one there was the second season. Well, I guess Sakai there was what three, but plus the movie. But again, this was like yeah, I will say that like, but it's like slight like again, they're all good. It's just yeah, this is where that's kind of where this show falls in between those. And again, it's just something where it's like yeah, that's the big thing. I think it's why a lot of people enjoy it because again, just from kind of gauging, because again, I saw a lot of the clips and that on YouTube, and that finally motivated me to actually watch it. But what it seems like and what I gathered is a lot of people feel the same way that I do, to where it's like, again, what it comes down to is again the big thing there being that it's like Jesus. That what it comes down to is again, it just feels so like genuine, such a breath of fresh air compared to everything else where it seems to just be like super like completely over the top. But again, the big thing with it, and again, like I said, there were two like specific over the top scenes, but like other than that, it's like it just and again, they weren't bad. It's just you could recognize it definitely, but like it's something where again, it's such a breath of fresh air, so it's so nice there, right? It's something where it's like okay, so I will say just being like touching on it. Surprised I hadn't touched on it yet, because again, one of the first things I touched on with Takai-san was that there's almost no like lewd stuff, but that's also because they're fucking middle school, right? Like that'd be like really like extremely sus. But it's also not the point. I will say there's quite a lot of well, I guess fan services. There's quite a lot of fan service for this one, but it's something to where again, it's not like well, I don't want to say it's not blatant or apparent, but it's not necessarily like fan service for the sake of fan service, I guess is a way to put it, right? And that goes with kind of like the genuine like feel of it, to where it's almost always like used as a point to where them getting closer, like further apart, not really, but them like getting closer, right, becoming more comfortable with each other, because it's almost always brought on by a lack of like self-awareness on her part, right? But then it's also something where it's like, again, he eventually brings like we see that where he eventually brings it up. He finally gains confidence to be like, look, like you can't be doing this shit around me. Like I'm a teenage dude, right? Like I can't be like staring at your like naked body like this, right? You know, like again, it's something to where like he even like that's because that's seemingly what it's all building up towards. But it's something where it's like again, it's used for that, and it's also the show itself is still extremely like I guess wholesome is the way to put it, right? It's still very much like it's not just like blatant like oh sex, fucking like porn, right? Like it's not like that. Okay, you have the one hotel scene, and that was like they were actually genuinely like that when they were actually in a position to actually do something, they got what would you call it, interrupted, and then like but that was when you wanted to see them do it, right? Because like you see all the fan service and it's like oh she's just being quirky, right? He can't handle it, or like she has no self-awareness there, but then they actually get in a position to like do something that's like you're like waiting, and then it gets ruined, and that's like oh fuck, god damn it, like but again something where and then again funny enough that was episode 11, and then episode 12 they follow up with like the whole fireworks festival, right, and the whole show there, which again it's nice because like for I believe it was 9 and 10 the focus was on the other characters like Juju and then her sister, right? I don't even remember their actual fucking names, but though because they brought those two in, but then the last two were specifically for Gojo and then Maureen, right? And they're kind of what his cut, because again, there's definitely, some, at least the big thing on Mari's part, some self-awareness regarding her own feelings for, Gojo, right? And on his part, kind of self-awareness about, at the end, kind of that, the big thing is, again, Maureen realizing how she feels about Gojo and what he's done for her, and then accepting that, and then Gojo realizing that Maureen's just like him, like she's not this like goddess, right? That like she deals, and again, he learned that partially through the other two characters, that that again, everyone goes through like different struggles, right? And that originally someone who he thought was in a completely different world, something to where it's like she's actually like living in the same life as he does, just it's that like sort of perception gap, I guess is a way to put it. But again, that's what those last two are really like focused on there, right? Again, it's just something to where what that comes down to there is it's like it's nice, and it I will say though, it kind of seemed like the show was all over the place. I mean, because you have the beginning, right, where they meet and then they do their first cosplay. Then you have, okay, some stuff in the middle, and then you have these last. It didn't really feel like it had like a concrete like storyline or like plotline or timeline. Like I will say that is one good thing about like what I really enjoyed about Takagi-san, right, was that it had a very structured and like concrete like timeline and like storyline that they followed. I mean, season 1 starts when their first year, and the last episode shows when they first meet. Season 2 is their second year. Season 3 is their third year, right? I mean, boom, and then the movie's that last summer. Like, you can literally tell like where they are in the timeline and like the events and things that have transpired. Even like let's say like other shows, like okay, well, Nagatoro, you can't. There's no like that's Nagatore's another example of where okay, there's no real like timeline there, right? There's no real like structure, I guess, like storyline that they're following. It's just kind of things that end up happening. I will say another show that I watched. This is going back quite a bit, but like Homie-san, that one followed that one somewhat followed a timeline in storyline, but it's also not as strict or like structured. So it is a bit confusing. Like, okay, where exactly are we right now? It somewhat follows it. I will say that. Like, there are things that happen and it follows that, but it's like that is again, probably like my one main critique I'd say about this is that there it doesn't, well, again, granted, by the end of the show it's revealed that okay, it's like summer break is over and they're starting school again, but it's something to where it's like I don't even remember what show they went on summer break, right? Again, it's something, it was definitely like, or what episode, it was definitely in the middle somewhere, but it's like it's that's kind of meaningless because the show is basically entirely focused on them outside of school anyway, so it's like but again, it's not that bad. Like it's not a super big. It's more of like a like very like what's the term? A nitpick. Like again, it's not like a super big like critique or even like a pet peeve. Like for me, it's just something to where that's like what can like take it beyond. Right? Is we have okay, we actually have this like maybe if it was a bit more, what would you call it? Like spread out. Like let's say rather than taking place over like one season, so it's the course of like a year, but again, something to where, like, again, that's very much a nitpick. And other than that, like, again, and then the one instance with, like, the dub, where it may have been talking about, what would you call it? Again, where it was talking about something different than what was going on. And then just, again, the couple instances where it did still feel like over the top. Other than that, fantastic fucking show, and really was a breath of fresh air regarding okay, feels nice to see them actually act like genuine fucking human beings and actually being like good and reasonable and understanding people instead of like just like other shows where it's just like okay, it's just this blatant like like over the top like sort of like acting. And again, something where it's like I don't think I'm gonna make an art video on this. And then the next show I plan on watching is Shikamori. And then after that, Scissor 7. But who knows when I'll get to those. Just we'll see. I got a list of shows I want to watch, and I'll make videos on all of them. Just wanted to make the one on this one right before I forgot. Because I just finished it yesterday. I watched 4 episodes a day. I watched the first 4, the second, the middle 4, and then the last 4. And it was like, yeah, and really did enjoy it, and really was nice there. I was so fucking disappointed when they didn't fucking kiss. I was like, that was like that's the biggest like tease and then like lack of payoff. Like that's another thing. It's like if some shit like that happened earlier on, but then they made up for it later. But again, it was like it was just such a tease, and it's like, please God, please let it fucking, and then it doesn't, and it's like, oh my God, like. But yeah, that you can't really critique him for because it's like, okay, that's not really the point of their like friendship, right? They're not even in a fucking relationship at this point, so it's like, again, just one of the again, it's just like just wanted to point that out there. But with that, I don't really have anything else. That's really all I've got for this one. So yep, so for this one, see you in the next one.